Guest workers have extended into landscaping, where, you know, any unemployed African American or poor white worker in the South with $500 could get an SBA loan, buy a little lawnmower, and become a landscaper. Instead, there are 65,000 Mexican landscapers on H-2B visas in the South. And last year, Jobs with Justice and the National Guest Worker Alliance collaborated on a campaign to expose how a publicly traded corporation, ABM, had its subsidiary recruit and traffic in Mexican guest workers to take jobs meant for local workers. They use stimulus money to do it, and they undercut not only local workers in general, but the local prevailing wage and job market. The consequences are very severe, but here's the good news. It is no longer necessary to go to China, Brazil, Honduras, or the Philippines to be in solidarity with the global labor market and the global labor movement. The global labor movement is coming to us. It's coming to each one of our backyards. And the reality is we have to prepare for it. We have either the chance to build beautiful and powerful global solidarity, or we are set up for a collision course where the global workforce is coming to us and they are being used to turn all permanent work in the United States into temporary work. The National Guest Worker Alliance represents thousands of guest workers in the United States across multiple industries and multiple geographies. And so we get to look at this problem across sectors. And it's not really a problem of sectors. The largest growth sector in the global economy right now, other than defense, is labor recruitment. This has been written about widely in the McKinsey Quarterly, to name one business journal. The reality is that the nature of migration in this world has changed considerably. There used to be a time when migration was the result largely of wars and famines. You had refugees and you had people who were running away from natural disasters. That's not the case anymore. Today, migration is largely labor migration. And if you take all of the labor migrants in the world and you add them up, and they were to constitute one nation, that would be the third largest nation in the world. It would be bigger than Germany. And that's a powerful fact. It's an unavoidable fact. It's growing. And so what are we going to do about it? Well, we have a couple of proposals. First of all, in terms of organizing temporary and subcontracted workers, it's very important that we start envisioning a new form of collective bargaining. It's important that we start envisioning bargaining with the 1%. Companies have either aggregated power at the top, or they've disaggregated power at the point of production. Many workers today at the point of production do not have power, and in fact, many workers don't even know their boss. They don't actually know who's benefiting from their labor. Well, it's time for them to find out. The 99% Spring movement is focusing on a number of corporations as examples of the 1%. The reality is the people who control the corporations that we're going after are largely the people who control the vast majority of the US workforce. So Alfred Marshall, back in New Orleans, has a temp job. He's a member of the New Orleans Worker Center. He's living in public housing. He's unemployed. And if he works for $12,000 a year. He needs to hold someone accountable. Well, he can't hold the temp agency accountable, but he's building the B.W. Cooper Marrero Commons project. And the investor in that project is Goldman Sachs. So he has a right to bargain with Goldman Sachs. The Louisiana guest worker from Mexico who's peeling crawfish and supplying that crawfish to a small distributor ultimately has the crawfish she peels supplied to Walmart. So she should get to bargain with Walmart. We need to start envisioning bargaining all the way up the supply chain. I would say that's the first fundamental priority of an above-the-horizon view of our new labor movement. Secondly, we need to organize workers before they get to their country of destination, before they get to the United States. When we led the campaign that John talked about with the Indian workers, we put organizers in India to organize the families of the workers and the unions in India around those workers, so that workers in the United States from India were joined in a global strategy with their families and unions in India. It worked. We won. That's why we're now proposing a global bargaining framework, that the countries that supply the global workforce should really think about a bargaining framework where workers internationally can bargain both with state and capital. They can bargain with recruiters, with their home governments, with the governments of their destination countries, and corporations. And this is not a pipe dream. We're starting in small ways to do this across the Gulf Coast and Mexico. We're starting to do it across India and the US. And over time, as this idea gathers momentum, it may be one day possible for workers to come from other countries to the United States in solidarity and at the same wage level, rather than undercutting each other. These are two proposals. They're big, hairy, audacious goals. They're not going to happen tomorrow. But then when I sat down with students and started saying, well, you know, from time to time, the labor movement has tried plant occupations at sit-down strikes, I didn't really think it was going to happen. It happened in 6 weeks. I think given Occupy and given the worldwide labor movement, we need to start thinking big and embrace these ideas. Thank you.